think it's time. I think this is happening. I've talked about this before, but the Twilight series is one of those first few series that really got me into reading. It was 2008. I was much too young to be reading this, according to some people. The movie had just come out. I watched the movie, binged the first 3 books, then was graciously gifted the last one for my birthday when it had come out, and the rest is history. Unironically, I still watch the movies every year, more than once a year, because at this point it's not even a guilty pleasure, it's just a pleasure. I find them to be super fun, even if they're not the best of movies, and it's always a good lighthearted time. Also, can we talk about my outfit? She came prepared. However, it's been 14 years since I've read Twilight, and yes, I do have 2 copies. What about it? And I've been craving to reread this, not necessarily the entire series, because I don't know if I could do it, but at the very least, the first book. So we're gonna reread Twilight today. Nobody asked for this video, and yet I feel like everybody deserves to re-experience this with me. And it's safe to say I am gonna talk spoilers about this throughout the entire video. I am ready for a good time. From 1 to 10, how bad is it that I've literally only read the prefix and I'm already so happy? The nostalgia is actually pretty wild. It's the way I only read this and my brain instantly went to bitter strange, I'll wrap you in my arms. Oh my god! Honestly, this is a solid start. I actually quite like the way it starts. I'd never given much thought to how I would die, though I had had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I would not have imagined it like this. I think that's a solid start to a book. Am I wrong? Am I crazy? I like it. I'm not mad at it. Anyways, I shall be back. So I've been trying to nail a good chai latte recipe that I can make at home, and although I have yet to find it, I did find another recipe today that looks quite good, quite simple, and we're gonna try it out together because I feel reading Twilight merits a good fall drink. Half a cup of water. It also calls for 2 tea bags. Let's hope for the best. And while that is steeping for 8 minutes, let's talk about our dear old Twilight, because I am currently 110 pages in, so about to walk into chapter 6. I don't know what it is about this. I don't know if this is just awakening my inner child and it's just hitting that nostalgic point. This is giving me the exact sort of escapism I haven't felt in years. The writing style leaves a lot to be desired. That's just the truth of it. The descriptions are very lackluster. It goes from one thing to the next without a lot of filler in between. It doesn't really have a lot of smooth transitions between scenes, between settings, and between character dialogues. Like, it's very simple and straightforward, and the dialogue is a lot of the times very cringy and or awkward, sometimes both. Edward is very charismatic in this one. He's always like smirking and like grinning and winking, which I do not remember from Edward Cullen, but it's quite funny to witness. Also, this man needs to make up his mind, and that's just the truth of things, because he is giving me as much whiplash as he is giving Bella. From the, "You do not want to be my friend, Bella. I am tired of the rules, Bella. I want to be your friend." It's all over the place, to be honest, and there are no excuses for Sir Edward Cullen. Something I'm finding absolutely fascinating this time around, though, is Bella as a parentified child. Obviously, when I was a kid, so I didn't really read too much into it, but the fact that Bella was really taking care of her mom. She was the one doing the groceries and making sure that the gas tank was filled and taking her mom's clothes to be washed and knowing her mom's schedule through and through, because her mom doesn't know those things, and her essentially giving up part of her life to move away to Forks because she wants her mom to be happy, but at the expense of her own happiness. And listen, it's actually quite messed up that she has to do that. And let me rephrase that she feels she needs to do that because she would rather please everybody else instead of herself, and it's actually quite messed up. I also didn't remember Bella being quite as espresso depresso in the first one, but she very much is. And I think it would have been such an interesting thing to explore in depth if Stephenie Meyer would have allowed herself to do it. And yet it's all very surface level, but when you look into it, it's like you can kind of make your own assumptions as you read. I do wonder how much of that is factoring into Bella's disregard for her own life and how she is constantly putting herself on the line for Edward and for their love. It's all very self-sacrificing, obviously, and although parts of it like are beautiful for like, oh my god, love is beautiful, it takes a certain kind of person to want to do those things. However, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the I'm not like other girls vibes. I've already read all of the material. Let me just read Wuthering Heights again for fun. Oh, I totally know what to do in this biology assignment. I am just so smart and intellectual. Maybe it's because Bella has the personality of a stale piece of bread, but I'm here for it. Everybody lusting after Bella and being like, Bella, come to the dance with me. Bella, don't go to Seattle. Come to the dance with me. And then the introduction of the Collins and it all being so angsty. And it really is the perfect book to read right now because it's rainy season here in Panama and it's raining every day and it's quite great. And you know what? Bella and I do have something in common. We both hate the rain. I love the cold, but I hate the rain.
We have a cup and a half of milk that also needs to go into this and 2 tablespoons of honey. And now I need to froth this. Apparently I'm scared.
Time for a taste test. I'm sorry, but this literally tastes exactly like the Starbucks one, which I mean was exactly what the recipe said. I just expected it to be a lie. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go rate now because this is 10 out of 10. Okay, but Edward's saying sometimes I have a problem with my temper, Bella. That's a red flag. Bella, run. That's a red flag, baby girl. This man changes so fast. How does he go from being Dominic Toretto to taking her to dinner? From a level of 1 to 10, how much do we think that Stephenie Meyer watched one Fast and Furious movie and decided to just make Edward Dominic Toretto for a scene? I think a solid 12. It is a new morning. Hello. Still wearing the same sweatshirt because it's the vibe. I got to the famous line about 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. 200 IQ, Bella. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. Third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. I hate this book, but I love it so much. What Bella needs is not Edward, is not Jacob. What she needs is therapy. Bella would be so much better on her own, and she really needs to go to therapy and just work on all of that childhood trauma and all of those parentified issues. She doesn't need love. She doesn't need vampire dick. She needs therapy! So I am currently 286 pages into this. I'm about to start chapter 14, and listen, all of the iconic scenes are here, right? The meadow scene, shining like a diamond, all of that good stuff that we know and love to make fun of. However, there is something that strikes me as so interesting because half the time my brain wants to argue, oh yeah, like Edward is giving her whiplash because he's also a teenager. Like, yes, he's been living for like 100 years, but like he's still a teenager at the end of the day. But no, this is a person that is very much mature mentally and that very much thinks of himself as superior and as a man. He is just filled of arrogance, and that's something I think nobody can deny. But the fact that he addresses everybody in the school as children, 1, and 2, Bella as a little girl, I'm not into that. I have to admit, I'm not into that. There's something about infantilizing the people around him and Bella. It hits different upon a reread to know that this is a man trapped inside the body of a teenager and that he thinks of her and everybody else that way. It honestly just gives me the ick. I did, however, get to the iconic line, and so the lion fell in love with the lamb. What a stupid lamb. what a sick masochistic lion. Also, the fact that Edward had this whole conversation with Bella about, do you really think you care about me more than I do you? I think their priorities are all very misaligned. For him, I wonder if he actually cares about her, and I don't doubt that he does to some extent, but it seems like it's all very possessive, and in ways, it seems like he is trying to prove his strength by surrounding himself with her and proving his self-restraint. Like, it's all very weird. There's this moment in the meadow when he kisses her for the first time, where he wants to try something different, and he's like, I'm stronger than I thought I was. And again, it's all just very whiplashy in the way that he goes, Bella, stay away from me. Oh my god, let me ask you a question. Like, that's how I picture him, and it's all a walking red flag at this point, between the anger, the lack of self-restraint, the anger to grinning within a sentence or two. Like, it's all very wild. And Bella, her affliction towards danger and the lack of appreciation for her own life is really wild. And again, I don't doubt that all of these issues with people pleasing and being a parentified child somehow factor into her own lack of happiness, obviously, and her journey with depression. I do wish this book would be longer and that it'd explore those things better, because even the way that Edward talks to Bella and he says, like, is there a moment where you're actually like not suicidal? I'm like, sir, how about we're a little bit more sensitive? You're literally talking to somebody who you know struggles with her mental health in some capacity, and that's how you want to phrase that sentence? I think 100 years would give him more than enough time to learn how to be sensitive and actually have good conversations, but apparently all courtesy went out the window with this man, or child at this point, because that's what he behaves like. Also, it's wild how everybody is lusting after Bella, between everybody at the school and Mike specifically. I'm like, Mike, baby boy, just like give it up. Like, she's really not that into you. Let's just let that one go past the page. Jacob, this whole thing with him being 2-3 years younger than Bella and her flirting with him to get information out of him about the vampires. No, Bella, that's a child. He literally just turned 15. He is a child. So I'm gonna need everybody to calm down, because Miss Stephenie is really blowing this out of proportion, just out of the water. She's like, she's not like other girls, and that's exactly why everybody loves her. And I'm like, does everybody love her because she's like actually cool and she's a good person, or because she's this pixie manic dream girl? Questions on questions. It's also quite hilarious to me that Edward is trying to figure out Bella so hard, and I'm like, sir, there is nothing going on in her head of actual substance. Anyways, 10 out of 10 for the nostalgia points, 0 points for what the book actually gives, but I'm enjoying the reread experience. Okay, but why is this low-key like so lame? Like, what did he bring into the next life and the others? They're talking about Edward and Alice and their powers. And he goes, Carlisle brought his compassion, Esme brought her ability to love compassionately, Emmett brought his strength, and Rosalie her tenacity. So nothing. Because like, what is this? Like, you can read minds and Alice can see the future, and they brought nothing. Just say it like that. So these two have been together for 5 seconds, and in my head, I'm already questioning the fact that they're together, because this man is just not it. But then Miss Bella straight up asks him, like, what about marriage for us someday? You've been with him for all of a minute. Somebody help her, honestly, for her birthday. They shouldn't have thrown her around like a rag doll or gotten her like physical gifts. Get her a therapy session. Just a thought for New Moon, for the rewrites. He doesn't even say I love you back. She said I love you, and he's like, you are my life. Now he doesn't even say it back.
So I truly chose the biggest mug for what I made, huh?
The baseball scene. It still reigns supreme. It is honestly so good, and it might just be the best scene in this book. I can't really think of anything more iconic than that, even in the movie, with that that movie had a great soundtrack. All cringiness and awkwardness aside, the score and the soundtrack of that movie will always reign supreme. It's just so good. Baseball scene in this did not disappoint. It's very short, but I think it's one of the most exciting ones, because the scene before that one and the scene after that are equally as exciting and very tense, which I very much enjoyed. So before it, Bella meets the Cullens for the very first time, and there is tension there despite some of the Cullens embracing and accepting Bella. because they know that Edward is very much into her, and so it defeats sort of the purpose, and they've been really wanting Edward to find a lifelong partner. But with Rosalie specifically, she feels like Bella is signing away her life to this family by dating Edward and really entangling herself with them. And Rosalie has always felt very strongly, personally, about wanting to be human rather than being a vampire. And so she feels like Bella is making a million mistakes by, again, entangling herself with the Cullens. And I think that is a really great setup for the baseball scene, which is a little bit more lighthearted, to then fall again into the tension of Laurent, Victoria, and James arriving, and James sniffing Bella and wanting to eat the fuck out of her. This man wants to kill her so bad, and it honestly stresses me out, even though I already know where it's going. And the follow-up to that scene, which is her going home to Charlie and having to pretend that like she's going home, she's running away and she doesn't care, and she recites back the words her mom told Charlie when her mom was leaving him. Honestly, she did not have to stoop that low. She could have said anything, and she decided to go with the one thing she knew was gonna hurt him the most. She will literally do anything for Edward. It's actually pretty wild, and I do wonder if a lot of what's factoring into that is the fact that maybe she was neglected by her parents, and her parents don't seem to pay that much attention to her because she's very independent. But she's not independent by choice. She is independent because that's the way she was brought up. And so it seems like Edward, being the one person who's actually paying attention and being very reciprocal with that attention she gives him, she just falls so much deeper into it. I think it's very, very interesting. I can't believe this video has just turned into me psychoanalyzing Bella Swan. Also, last thing before I left, because this genuinely killed me. Edward, see, I genuinely don't know how Bella fell in love with him. I understand the whole he's attractive, he looks very ethereal, he's a vampire and all of that. But at the end of the day, this man's remarks about Bella are just not good. He keeps infantilizing her. At one point it was described that she was lifted up as a toddler. Not the best description to have. And then and then she said, I was sure it was a dream. And he goes, you're not that creative. And you know what? He's not wrong. But it's funny to me that he can also see that she has the personality of stale bread. Bella, we need to raise those standards. We're in the same, we got there. So she's just been bitten by James. Let me sign. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? The lyrics to this song: standing there by the broken tree, her hands were all twisted, she was pointing at me. I was damned by the light coming out of her eyes. She spoke with a voice that disrupted the sky. And this is the only part that I can remember. She said walk on over, yeah, to the bit of shade. He's still singing in cursive. So I'm gonna put on the song and listen to it.
Edward, it hurts. My hand hurts. My hand is burning. Yes, this is exactly what I wanted. He's singing in cursive.
Finally a different hoodie. I am out of the Twilight spell because we have finished Twilight, friends. Cheers to that. In all honesty, this was a great reread experience. I am glad that I did it just to sort of scratch that itch that I had. And I do think Twilight is overall a fun experience, but when you get to the bulk of it, there's a lot of issues. Mainly being Edward as one of the biggest issues of the series, and particularly of book one. I failed to understand a lot of the time how Bella fell in love with him. I think a lot of it can be factored into the fact that Bella's father, Charlie, is very absent, not only in this book, but throughout her entire childhood going into teenage years. And her daddy issues really come in handy for this relationship because Edward is stepping into this as a father figure. Not only does he continuously infantilize Bella, but he is also incredibly condescending and strips every bit of agency Bella could potentially have away. He makes every single choice for her, and all of that is just deeply rooted into misogyny, but he makes every single choice for her. She has no say, no choice, no anything. He acts as if she does, and that is why the portrayal of this relationship borderlines, if not falls into the abusive category, because he makes it seem as if she has a choice with him, and yet she doesn't. She doesn't have the ability to choose anything because she is so blinded by what she thinks Edward is and what she wants him to be because of his actions that she can't see the situation clearly, and it's actually very, very flabbergasting. I think honestly the only real choice Bella makes in this book is coming into Forks. And even that in and of itself is so tied to her giving up her agency and her own happiness in life to make her own mother happy. And I can get into a myriad of issues I have in her relationship with Renee and with Charlie, and the fact that she continuously steps up as a parent when she doesn't have to, and both of these parents just sit about as the child does everything. Charlie, whether he wants it or not, whether he admits it or not, his behavior is so deeply rooted in the patriarchy and in misogyny, it's actually pretty fucking crazy. This man just sits around after work, watches the TV, does absolutely nothing, and asks Bella, "What's for dinner today? Did you grocery shop? Did you do this? Did you do that?" It is not that hard, especially because he does remark in the book, "You need to stop babying me, Bella." Is it so hard, Charlie, to tell your daughter to sit the fuck down and you'll take care of things? It really isn't. So it's quite infuriating to read about. And speaking of Bella and her downfall as a character, for me personally, is the fact that she is so very clearly a projection of Stephenie Meyer. It's actually pretty laughable. Bella is described as somebody who is fair-skinned, and she is not like other girls because she is fair-skinned, but she is also a brunette and she has brown eyes, versus every other girl who is, yes, white, but they have blonde hair and blue eyes. And let's just forget that Bella's hair shines red when she is under the sun. Can you think of anybody whose description can fit that perfectly? Huh. I couldn't either. And to top things off with a red bow to give to the readers, we have got the Quileute tribe, which is constantly used throughout the series. It is not featured as heavily in Twilight as the first installment. We really only get one scene where Quileute tribe is featured and we get to see Jacob and other people in the tribe when they do go to La Push, which is the area that they reside in. Listen, there is a lot to be said about this book and how Bella continuously describes the Collins as marbled skin, fair skin, they shine in the sun, they are so good, where Meyer really falls into the pit traps of continuously glorifying the looks of the Collins and associating that to the embodiment of good and to the embodiment of all things right. And yet when you look at the Quileute and how they're described, particularly Jacob, not only is his appearance described as copper-skinned, black of hair and dark eyes, but his last name is also black. And not only that, but this is a minor who is constantly over-sexualized because he doesn't look his age, and that is attributed to his skin color, that is attributed to how big his muscles are, and I don't fail to feel uncomfortable at reading that. Also, this whole depiction of indigenous or Native American people described as people who are violent, as people who are savages, as people who are aggressive, is also a constant not only in the thoughts of the vampires that we see in the series, not all of them, some of them, but also just as a constant throughout the series. Really not that great. So yes, overall, is it a fun experience? Sure. When you get into the depths of this book, it's actually pretty nasty. So for enjoyment purposes, if you weren't to look at everything, like sure, this could be a 5-star, it could be a 10 out of 10. This is a 1-star. This is just not an amazing book. That's it. Finish the book. Cheers to that. I love how this entire video was not meant to be me shitting on Twilight. I was generally just doing it for fun, and yet I ended up psychoanalyzing everybody and shitting on the book, so cheers to that as well. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. If you enjoy book lifestyle content all thrown into one, you know what to press. I also do have a Patreon if you guys would like to support the channel further. It is always linked down below alongside all of my socials. You're gonna get a bunch of content over there that you're not gonna see here in the main channel. You're gonna get live shows, reading sprints every week. You're gonna get a book club, extra videos, and just a bunch of cool stuff over there. So that is always linked down below. I love you guys so much, and I shall see you on the next one.